Greetings all, Dr. Raphael X here with another video on philosophy with my friend Jeremy here. And today the topic is, well, we're revisiting philosophy of religion. So click on that subscribe button, leave a comment, share, like this video, and all that good stuff. So this is a Catholic channel, but really it is Catholicism that pretty much out of all the religions that puts philosophy on a pedestal, right? So with Catholicism, stressing philosophy, as Pope Leo XIII wrote in his encyclical Aeterni Patris, we can talk about themes that are philosophical as a way to kind of smoothen the path to religion. So philosophy of religion, right, or phenomenology of religion, however you want to call it. We're going to talk about it in general terms. Um, We'll also talk about the essential aspects of religion. What does a religion have to contain, right? Because a religion has to be there has to be something that makes it a religion, right? What makes religion a religion? We have to start with basic realism that things exist objectively. They have, constitutive, principles that constitute it. So it can't be whatever you like. Kind of like I remember I had a professor who well, it wasn't a professor. It was a professor from outside giving a seminar, and she said that psychology. She was teaching us about psychology, something in particular. But she started off with saying psychology is anything you want it to be. It's like, and I asked the question towards the end. I'm like, well, what makes psychology psychology? And she didn't know how to answer. It was absurd. That's absurd, right? There has to be. We have to kind of see if we can agree on a definition or find a good, legit, concise, exacting as much as possible definition regarding religion, so we know what we're talking about, right? It's not like anything goes, or else the word itself would make no sense. Again, we have to start with basic realism here, right? We also have to start with, in a sense of, we can't be prejudiced like the rationalists or the neo-rationalists. They approach religion with this bias that they try to kind of pass it through the experimental test. They're looking for objective evidence, and no, we're looking at this phenomenon that really proceeds from the profound desire of man, right? Profound desire of man, and basically, if this profound desire exists, there seemingly has to exist this reality that that fulfills this desire. Kind of like, we're hungry, we have food, right? We have a desire for sleeping, there's rest, right? We desire for to be social, there's a society. So we have this innate desire of religion, and even history itself is pretty much recorded. It starts being recorded, right? Ancient history, right at the get-go with man, right? Some type of revelation of or manifestation, I should say, of religious practices. So just kind of passing the bar off to you if you want to chime in here, Jeremy, on our discussion here of the philosophy of religion.
Yeah. So many approaches to take to such a major topic. We could go off of something you mentioned, which is that every genuine desire in our experience has, at least in principle, an object that could satisfy it. For example, I need not have ever seen food or smelt it or touched it, and yet, in principle, I get very hungry. There must be something in existence which could satiate that hunger, even if I didn't know about it, right? As it happens, there might not be food. Unfortunately, I might be on an island all alone. I might be starving, but there's such a thing in reality as food. Imagine having the need for food and yet there not being food in principle. That's crazy, right? Imagine having the need for oxygen and there not being such a thing as oxygen in principle. We can't even imagine that, right? So, in our experience, it does seem that every legitimate, uh, genuine desire has an object such that could, in principle, satisfy it. Now, within the general arena of what we're discussing, right? And what is the desire that we would try to look to in this connection? We say that as it concerns our desires, we have many contingent desires that come and go. Right? Normally, our desires arise in light of our, first of all, our physiology, obviously breathing, eating, drinking, using the restroom, sleeping, and so forth. And also in light of our psychology, what could be called egoism, but it need not be so, right? Just in light of our psychology, it satisfies me to be successful. It satisfies me when people treat me a certain way. It satisfies me to get respect. It satisfies me to fulfill the claims of my pride, for instance. It satisfies me to earn money. Right? That's an abstracted representation of my capacity to satisfy desires. That's the majority of my desires. They're physiological, they're psychological, they're psychophysiological, and yet this is fine up until a certain point. And yet, if a person really truly pursues their desires, right, really climbs that hill and gives an honest, earnest effort at attaining to happiness via the satisfaction of such contingent, finite desires, right? I'm going to be happy when I get the new house. I'm going to be happy when I earn a certain amount of money. I'm going to be happy when I have enough success, when I have enough honor, when I have enough profit, whatever it might be. A person really gives it a shot and sees that it really was not enough. I have what I wanted, and yet it's not enough. And we say that this is a necessary and universal and permanent phenomenon by the way of us, by the way of humanity. If I were to conquer one nation, I would want to conquer a second one in general. And maybe something else, but along those same lines. The second one, a third one. Look at Napoleon, for instance. A movie just came out, right? Napoleon. Look at his ambitions. It wasn't enough to get one little piece of land. Let's get more. Let's get more. Look at Julius Caesar. All right. So we say that we strive to satisfy ourselves by the way of the finite, and yet we never can so do. I think the beginning of anything such that we are now discussing would be that honest acknowledgement. I cannot satisfy myself by the way of the finite, by the way of the satisfaction of these contingent desires.
Yeah,
I'm like a rat chasing a donkey chasing its tail, or a rat in a wheel, right? Chasing after stimulations. And yet I have this desire for true happiness. I have this desire for some kind of ultimate satisfaction, right? For some kind of true peace, for some kind of true good. I have this desire just as much as I do for oxygen, for food, for sleeping, right? So what gives? I think when we begin to think like that, that's when we can turn to something higher in life. Whereas while we have hopes that we will attain to true and lasting, permanent satisfaction, happiness by attaining to some or another particular objective, right? By satisfying some kind of ambition, by being successful enough, and so forth, then we are still not yet ready to think along those higher lines, I'd say.
yeah, and I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that the contingency of man. I think it's a reality that we're faced with, even though through kind of finite and temporal goods and successes, we may, we may forget or maybe even try to hide totally, like a type of escapism, our contingency, our dependence. But really, that's the ultimate reality. I mean, fundamentally, the fundamental question is, why am I here? What am I? Right? And there's this deep realization that we are contingent, we are dependent, right? We were brought into existence, not as a, not the fruit of a free choice, but rather forcibly. So there must be a reason for my existence. So there's this natural inclination, and again, ancient history shows this. Every single culture has had some time, and you see this in the practice, right? From the practical, you go to the theoretical, of course, to the belief system, that there is a type of belief in, and a desire of belief in, of course, also in the supernatural, right? That which transcends the natural, right? We kind of, you see that thirst there, and it has a lot of different manifestations. And some people say, well, it is true that it's really difficult to talk about the essence of religion, to define it, because religion doesn't exist, but religions in plural exist. But again, there has to be it has to be definable if we're going to say religion as religion. What makes religion religion? So we're going to try to do that, right, progressively. But again, it is something innate in us, and even like the notion of holiness, for example, holy is something that is apart from the profane, is apart from the secular, right? It's something different, something that is has a different goal, is dedicated, is special, is special. It's something that cannot be, even the word profaned, right? Profaned comes from that really something sacred in a sense was made secularized or lost its sacredness somehow. Um, so these two realms, in a sense, these are innate to us. So I find that really interesting how even the way people speak, or from what we know. Let me turn off my email here. That really we're revealing the reality of religion. So basically, what we have to do is do phenomenology of it to see, kind of analyze it essentially. But yeah, this is a real phenomenon, and it must be approached with the utmost reverence and respect. I mean, even those who do not follow a particular religion, if they are sincere, right, they must approach this with with respect and a certain type of awe, right? That shows the sincerity of these people. Ultimately, there's something there.
Yeah, yeah. I think one obstacle in the way of any kind of mutual understanding here in this arena would be the failure to note that the same thing can mean very different things to different people, right? So, obvious example, I look at a picture of a woman such that is my mother. I point to the picture and I say, that's my mother. Now, if somebody that is not a sibling of mine points to that same picture, can they say that that is my mother? No, right? Because it's not their mother. So the picture is a sign of my mother, and yet it's only to me, not to anybody else aside from one's siblings, right? And yet a failure to note that can lead to a lot of confusion because I look at one picture and I say, that is my mother. And you look at it and say, no, it's not. Right? And then we're fighting over it. Right? So here we have to recall that the same thing would hold again in this present. Concerning this present topic, certain signs and symbols and words, and for me, can mean the highest, can point me emotionally and mentally towards the highest spheres of life, and yet to somebody else that is not was not bred on that same material, that to them is meaningless.
Yeah,
Right? You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, no, for sure. In a particular, yeah, but in general, I think broadly speaking, that this distinction still holds, even though we concretely we cannot, there will be disagreement. But I think in general terms, we can agree that that distinction exists. The holy and the profane, even though what's holy for you might not be holy for me, or might be, just purely subjectively, interpreted. But there's objectivity in that it exists, right? That there's some type of that's essential to religion, actually, that there's two realms, that there is a different realm. It's interesting that you mentioned sign, because I think that again, broadly taken in, is essential to religion too, that really we are in the world of signs, which um, they are the object of sense. So what we sense experience are signs, and this may sound very Platonic, but actually Plato is probably the best philosophy. It's considered as extreme realism. It's mystical. I mean, it is probably the best philosophy to apply to a religion. It's almost like a religious philosophy. Um, so basically, our lives are signs. Everything that we sense experience are signs and symbols. They're not the reality. They point to a reality. The reality is immaterial. Reality is immutable. And Plato would say knowing what is immutable, right? Immutability, that is what knowledge is, right? That is knowing, properly speaking. Anything you say about the senses, like the cat is over there, that's just an opinion, because truth is not on the level of the senses, is not on the level of the natural. Again, we're using the word natural in the sense of what we sense experience, and the supernatural is what is, now Plato would say it's another world, but really in religion, in a sense, it's here. In a sense, it's here, but it's veiled by the object of sense, right? That which we sense experience, and kind of the necessity to transcend that, the necessity to go beyond that, and kind of to refer to that and have your whole life oriented towards that, and that would be the religious life, properly speaking. So this notion of immateriality, supernatural, supernaturality, um, that's even a word. I think I made that up. That would be the holy, right? So the holy would ultimately have to point to something, right, immaterial, supernatural, above and beyond the mere physical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Very
Well,
platonic,
I
but
would, yeah, yeah, just to connect some of those points to try to so do. I think so. Initially, we mentioned that a person realizes or may realize at a certain stage of their maturity that they have a need, a desire for some kind of innate satisfaction of self that nothing profane and mundane can meet. Even if I do get another raise and I do get another promotion, and I do get another object, and I leave my current spouse and I get a better one, younger, older, whatever. Even then, I'm still going to want more. So I have to maybe turn the other way, right? Normally, life is lived. The modus operandi is self-aggrandizement. I again try to satisfy the claims of my physiology and of my egoism. Perhaps my ego doesn't hold up, so I project my egoism. Right, like a plane falling down, you hit the button, the pilot goes up. So boom, my ego's going down. I project it onto a larger object. Perhaps my state, my nation, perhaps my organization, perhaps my ancestors, perhaps my family, whatever it might be, and that becomes another idol for me. And I still fail too. In so doing, attain to that innermost satisfaction of self that I'm after. So here we go the other way, and we suppose that perhaps my good does lie in my healthy and well-adjusted relation to that which is supra-phenomenal, meaning that which is not found in the senses. Existence, it seems sound to say that existence does exist. We may think that the default is nothing, quote unquote, right? Because we visualize darkness or we visualize, what things look like with our eyes closed. But that's just kind of there's no real grounds for that. Why not say that what is a given is existence? Nothing is relative nothing. For example, I may say there is no, elephant in this room. And by that, I mean that I conceive of an elephant, which I mean by the word elephant, right? That's something, the trunk and all of that. And then everything that I perceive is other than the elephant. And that forms those two positive statements. I perceive, a table, I perceive a window, and I conceive of an elephant simultaneously, and all of that varies. The elephant varies from all that which I perceive. This forms a positive negation. There is no elephant in the room. What would it mean to say there is no something, period, in an absolute way? What does that mean? Who knows, right? So instead we say existence there is, and yet what is existence? Right? If we turn to the physicist, may tell us the latest theory. Perhaps every moment is broken down or can be broken down into an infinite amount of moments, and there's this infinitesimally minute sliver of time and space, whatever the latest again demarcations there are, some time, space, time, whatever it is. There's a basic tiny little sliver of reality, and that's all that we have. That is reality. These constantly shifting moments. Perhaps reality is really consistent out of something that the term matter is supposed to refer to. Nobody quite knows anymore what that is supposed to be. Right? Is it really the atoms? Oh, the atoms are something else. Is it something else? So that maybe that's really existence. But another option could be to say, I don't know what existence is, but there must be existence. There must be reality, and I relate as this creature that I am. In some ways, I relate to it. Let me find out how I relate to it, and let me find out how to improve that relationship. And if I can't improve it, by stoking my egoism, right? By forming another self-image of mine. I'm very holy. I'm very saintly. I can't do that, right? That's not going to work. Well, maybe I have to go the other way, reverse course, right? Reduce my egoism, reduce my selfishness, right? Serve without leading things back to myself, pursue the truth without leading things back to myself, and perhaps then my relation with existence, shall we say, or with reality will improve, whereas at present it is poor.
Right. Yeah, that's very a lot of points there. Really, religion, sincere religion, has to be based on objectivity because it's a huge temptation. I mean, if you do not believe in objective religion, you will fabricate your own religion. I mean, that's just the case. You will fabricate your own, and you will live according to your own belief system. You will supernaturalize it, and you would make yourself God as the arbiter of truth. That's without a doubt, and that's rationalism, and that's very common. We see that, you know, as something very prevalent. But regarding existence, it's interesting. You know, that's why you see physics taking a metaphysical term for sure, talking about existence. But I think we have to. I mean, just to push back a little bit, I think we just have to affirm it because these fundamental notions, they're so fundamental that you cannot define them, because when you define something, you use other more foundational words to define, but there's no more foundational word than existence, that which exists. I remember the metaphysical definition was that which is outside, or that which makes something outside of nothingness. It was defined negatively, so that's interesting. Um, so I don't know. I think a lot of that, like, what do we mean by existence and this and that?
Yeah, I would just meant
Greetings all. Sorry we got cut off there. All right, so just to continue the discussion, yes, we talking about existence. I think if we go down the rabbit hole of seeing existence as like equivocal term, what do we mean? I think that's a problem, because existence should just be what is, right? What is outside of nothingness? What is brought outside of is nothingness? So there's definitely that rabbit hole in religion. Like some would say, like Jordan Peterson, for example, he would say, like, who am I to say that God exists? Or what does it mean to say that? What does that mean to say God exists? I mean, that's so fundamental that you cannot define it. Like it's something that we should know immediately. It's self-evident existence, precisely because we exist in that sense. Um, so yeah, I think it's, again, the subjective experience in the phenomenon, right, of religion in man has to be based on the objective to be sincere, and if not, it's a self fabrication. So I'm going to turn to some essential elements, and actually, I have here, which is interesting, a dictionary definition, a philosophical dictionary, not a regular dictionary with its conventional definitions, but this is, I think, a pretty good one, and it's from a dictionary philosophy of religion from Tai Taliaferro and Marti from 2010. I think I butchered one of the last names, but says a religion involves a communal, transmittable body of teachings and prescribed practices about an ultimate sacred reality or state of being that calls for reverence or awe, a body which guides its practitioners into what it describes as a saving, illuminating, or emancipatory relationship to this reality through a personally transformative life of prayer, ritualized meditation, and/or moral practices like repentance and personal regeneration. All right. So the problem I have with this religion is that religion, to retie, essentially,
the definition.
there has to be a belief in God or gods, right? There has to be a belief in gods, in the transcendent, not just some transcendent reality. I think that becomes a distorted relationship. I think religion has to believe in a personal God, and I'll pass it on to you. But I just want to say that I was talking to someone on Reddit, and he said, I'm a Buddhist, but I'm an atheist, but I believe in Buddhist theology, atheistic theology. So I'm like, how that's the contradiction of terms. right? It's essentially saying, like a four-sided triangle. You cannot have uh atheistic, same thing in religion. Now religion may be broadly understood than theology and may allow for the possibility in a sense, but I don't think so. I think that there's distortions of religion, which is superstition, man-made, and these are precisely these man-made elements that God, and even God, his reality, its reality, let's say, which is on the philosophical level, can be shown using philosophy. Even the fact that he's one, that God's reality can be shown through reason, and because reason and religion, there must be a complementarity since truth is one. It must be based on the relationship with God. God's, yes, but God in particular. But that's one of the essential elements, I would say. Go ahead. Chime in.
Yeah. Just to link the two threads that we mentioned before together. So on the one hand, I see that I have an insatiable desire for some kind of true and ultimate happiness that nothing in the world defined as the world is usually defined. My job, my interest, my pleasures, none of that. A desire that none of that can meet. On the other hand, I have this notion, or I can have this notion that there must be reality, there must be existence, there must be some sort of ultimate, right? There must be something that really is. Now, if I again think a little bit, I see that if I simply throw in a word like universe, right, it doesn't fly. I mean, ultimate reality cannot consist out of some of my, can consist neither out of fluctuating sensations, the lowest grade of reality, something that is here now and passes. The light flashes, I have a little tingle. Oh, that'd be ultimate reality. Nor can it consist out of the theoretical, mathematical, verbal world image that forms in connection with certain phenomenal observations. Right, and yet still there must be some sort of ultimate reality. What is it? So perhaps the best thing that I can do is say what it is not. I have to, in order to attain to that true happiness that I'm after, I have to put myself in proper relations with the ultimate, the absolute. All right, I have to get on right terms with what really is, and yet what really is. Again, we're not going to say, oh, with the universe or whatnot. What is it? Well, we can say what it's not. All right, it's not my phone. It's not my water bottle. It's not my YouTube account or my other social media accounts. It's not my job. It's not any person, right? A friend of mine, a family member of mine. What is it? So I keep saying it's not this and it's not that. My true good does not lie with any such idols. My true good does not lie with any such titillations of mine. This brings me pleasure. That brings me pleasure. And by continually sacrificing my selfishness in this way and looking to rid myself of my egoism, perhaps I will, in truth, and not only verbally, attain to a living connection with the ultimate, just to use that word, right? With my own true life, indeed. And I think this is another way to phrase the present problem. Right? We're after life. We want to be. We want to exist. We chase appearances of life. And I'm driving along, a favorite song of mine comes on, and I feel alive for a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but then it goes away. And I feel alive maybe when I watch my favorite show on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it is, I feel alive maybe for, if I'm lucky, a couple of minutes on vacation. Usually a lot of hassle on vacation. I have to, travel and this and that, but maybe I catch a good vibe on vacation. But what I'm after truly is true life, that totality that is itself, right? Something that possesses life all at once and not just these little flashes. And that could be a way, excuse me, perhaps to think of it. I have to sacrifice myself, but I cannot sacrifice myself to an idol or to any finite object. And since I don't know, I cannot point to ultimate reality and say, oh, there it is, right? Or it's some word. I just keep on sacrificing and I don't stop. If I stop, right, I might become, again, a very enthusiastic supporter of my political party. I might become a very enthusiastic connoisseur of some or another particular interest, but I'm not going to reach my true good. So don't stop in that self-sacrifice.
Right, right. No, and you touch on an interesting point, which I think ultimately is true, that you really to know religion, you have to live it. I mean, to do even philosophy of religion, to kind of analyze it, you have to have experienced, at least have the religious experience, which we can talk about another um, episode, because that is really fascinating and is something real, right? It must, again, it must be respected. But um, religion is really is fascinating in the sense that it is it is well, what you said is we could its object, essentially we could say what it's not, namely God, and that's very Thomistic with the negative theology, saying that we essentially we deny we what we apply to its object, we deny what we sense experience. So like infinite, immortal, these are negative terms, right? So that's called the negative theology, that but that we know through negation. It does have a content, but it's essentially negation. We are finite, um, so we know infinite negatively, right? We're mortal. We know immortal negatively by its very words. So yes, that's spot on for sure, in a natural sense. Now, not to say mystically, you know, you don't know directly or positively, but if words do refer to reality, sensible realities, right? Like chair, we understand each other's because the words ultimately have a reference to a sensible reality, right? Or even abstract reality that has foundation in senses. So if I were to have a mystical experience, that would be ineffable, right? I wouldn't be able to communicate that. That would be beyond words. So just as communication, we're in the natural level. So yeah, for sure, it's a negative type of, you know, um, is it they call it apophatic theology, if I'm not mistaken. But religion, I mean, necessary. It's a cry for help. It's man's feeling of in his contingency, as I mentioned before, his finitude, right? His finitude of his life, right? The his feeling of the weight of his sins, the corruptibility of his body, right? The evil that exists, the awareness of his guilt, right? And that there's an innate also need for salvation. Like all religions preach this essentially. Now, some people say Islam doesn't, but with the black stone, from what I hear from someone that were talking on it about the Hadiths, there were a couple of YouTube videos. There was a debate, actually interesting, that the black stone actually is you kiss the black stone and it's black because it took away your sins. So Islam is, in a sense, does believe in salvation. You cannot have religion without this sense of redemption, of salvation. And it's really only Christianity, Catholicism that offers that, and that explicates that. But there's this need that I need to be saved, and I'm essentially broken, right? I'm broken. I need my sins to be taken away. I need my guilt to be taken away. And that's why when people don't turn to true religion, as Chesterton says, they end up believing in all other things, and all other things that will save them, right? You see this turn to meditative yoga, right? Which is, it was actually stems from Hinduism yoga, right? It's all about kind of uniting to the inner God within you, which is the serpent in your spine. Right? So it's just this need that we have to fix ourselves, right? That religion provides. And so, yes, there is this element that um, if we were not totally sincere, then we automatically will actually fabricate a religion as a psychological necessity. Right? So I don't know. We should end a little bit soon on this. I don't know if you want to take the last word, and yeah, or if you want to continue, whatever. Go ahead. So, and I
We
know you
could
told
try.
me you had to go, so but we
Yeah,
did it. We
yeah.
did pretty good time on this, but I'll give you the last word there.
We could try to kind of get some of the main points across and wrap up. Yeah, that's a great point, I think, Professor. One has to feel the need for what we can call salvation. One has to feel one's inadequacy and one's helplessness. And here, um, it can be helpful to be honest. The possibilities for the highest life philosophy are at everybody's fingertips. What are those possibilities? What is that fact that I have to mind? It's my own certain demise. It's the fact that I'm going to die. as soon as I really truly get that I'm going to die, right? That could be all that I need in order to convert me into a higher human life, because I see that if I remain in the status quo, right, I remain the selfish, self-centered piece of egoism that I at present am, with all of my claims and all of my demands and all of my, dreams or whatnot, and all of my desires, I'm really screwed. And the nearer that I approach my end, the more screwed I'm going to be, unless I lose my mind even more. So one would think, on the face of it, that this fact alone would be enough to get all of us to think about the purpose of life, and how do we attain to a good that is worthwhile. Right, I'm on the Titanic and I hear that it's sinking. Imagine if I just continued to play the card game I was playing? I'd be nuts, right? That's not even bravery. That's just stupidity. Try to get out. I try to help the women, the children, if I'm a man, there's that. But I need to I need to move and save myself, or at least other people. Can't just sit there. So when we hear about our death and we do nothing, it's unbelievable. But that's a function, I think, of our selfishness and of our deceit. I can be 120 years old. Right? I know intellectually. Somebody asked me, how long are you going to live? I could say, I'll be lucky to live another year. Another 2 years will be amazing. But emotionally, I don't feel it. I don't believe it. It is not real to me. And therefore, I feel perfectly fine retaining my selfishness and my self-centeredness, from which I need salvation to the very end. Right? At which point it may be too late. And of what does that salvation consist out of? I think here, somebody could say, I simply have to not identify with my, with my body, with my life. So what are you going to get then? Right? Just a living death. Right? You're just going to be looking onto death, right? Onto yourself, onto a cold, hard heart. That's not what we're after. It's not about simply pulling back from life like somebody might do in a case of trauma. Somebody unfortunately gets traumatized, especially young people, tragically, and they kind of pull back. I'm just an observer. I feel like it's not my body, it's not my life. That's not salvation. That's not what we're after. What we want to love something over and above ourselves. Right? We want to develop love and to have it in the first place and direct it outward, right? At reality, at goodness, over and above ourselves, which ultimately includes other people, but it's not other people in isolation of that love. Right? And that is a very difficult thing, because the fact is, I can acknowledge this. I can talk about it. I can say it's necessary, and yet I still do not love. I still have no love in my heart, and I don't see any way to acquire it. That's why it's been suggested that we cannot will our way to our own salvation. In the sense, I cannot snap my fingers and attain to a life of love. Right? I'm a sociopath. I can't just, no, I heard that it's good to love. All right, I got it, no problem. People make that mistake of thinking that, I've heard of something, it's a done deal. Right? Or out of the very same self-interest. In order for me to end up in a good place in the next life, I have to be loving. I got it, no problem. No, because that relates right back to ourselves. Yeah. This is a truly thorny dilemma. All right. Again, some obviously have suggested there's nothing that a person can do on this account. We're completely screwed. Right? And yet, it might be offered in light of more so integral picture of psychology and human nature, and such, that I have to do what I can, and there is something that I can do, and at least I can tell myself the truth. At least I can, for example, acknowledge my death. At least I can, for example, acknowledge my selfishness and self-centeredness, and then grant that it's not good. It's not good in other people, right? I don't like selfish people, so why is it good in me? Some people will say, yeah, I am self-centered, but it's fine. Well, you don't like when your spouse is self-centered, right? Well, why is it fine in you? So at least use our freedom where we do have it, acknowledge relevant truths, and really understand the dilemma we're in. I'll wrap up shortly, but the dilemma is either me as a self, everything is the center of things. Everything I do is for myself. Either that's a complete illusion in any and every capacity. Some people try to take that route. I'm an epiphenomenon of my brain. right? I don't really exist, or I really do exist in some way. And if I reach the day of my death and I have no love in my heart and I have no life in myself, and now I'm facing my annihilation as a body, as a creature, and yet I really do exist, what do I think will happen to me? What do I think the future holds for me? Maybe nothing. Okay, no problem. Take that risk. But that's not a risk that a reasonable person, I would suggest, would be willing to take if he or she really thought about it.
Right, right. No, that's it. Yeah, and you really manifest how religion is something very much concrete. I mean, it's not just something you live in the abstract. It's definitely uh again, it comes from this need and this desire. I mean, no one wants to die, this desire of life, right? We naturally desire to live. And if we don't want to die, again, that must be fulfilled in some type of afterlife, kind of also being canalized, you could say, or manifested in a different way of people trying to, right, beat death. But yeah, it's really it's really fascinating in that sense. And so yeah, basically essential elements, I think, belief in God or gods of transcendence, ritual practices for sure, and there's some type of revelation, right? So we're talking about real religion, where some type of revelation exists, um, that comes from God. Again, this cannot be man-made, right? It cannot be merely man-made because um, there would be no legitimacy to it, right? There would be no attractiveness to what you made up. Why would I want what you made up? Why would you want what I made up as a belief system? So really, this conformity, which is tremendous, a cause of inner peace, where I can conform to something that I did not make up. Essentially, it exists. It's outside of me. It's extramental, outside of my mind, not intramental, right? And we can show this to be beneficial, obviously. I mean, just the fruits of that religion has produced, in art, in music, right? The noblest of sentiments religion has produced is, and the most grotesque sentiments, I mean, without a doubt, is very patent. So it's something that should be pursued. And if you're sincere out there, you believe in objective truth, ask God, and you don't follow religion, you're not Christian, you're not Catholic, um, you know, it- ask God, to guide you. I mean, in a sense, we should be critical. That whole notion of faith too, we didn't address, which is interesting. All religions have some type of notion of faith where you see without believing, but there should be some rational basis of your faith. There should be a religion that does not negate natural knowledge, logic, philosophy, and even science, right? Science can help religion not fall into superstition, as religion can help science, right? Gives it meaning. It helps it from falling into nihilism. So, if be sincere, ask God to guide you to the truth, right? Now, if you have a reason for what you believe, right? Why are you Muslim? Right? Why are you a Buddhist? Right? Why are you Catholic? Right? I believe that Catholicism is the fullness of the truth. I know it is, and there's reasons, right, for the fruits it has produced. The prophecies have been fulfilled, the miracles, right? The countless charitable organizations have been founded. Its coherency, right? Its tremendous revelation, its richness. So there ought to be reasons for you not only seeing a religion or religion in general as something that is admirable and awesome in the proper, right, um, etymology of the word, full of awe. We just use that word too much. Awesome is lost its meaning, but truly seeing it as awesome, and finding a particular one to give your life meaning. And I would invite you to Catholicism, right? So I ended it there. I don't know if you have any, if you want to say something else towards the end there.
Yeah, no, I think two great points there, Professor, that could be worth adding a little bit to. One is that, yeah, it is absolutely necessary for an individual to believe that that which they're using as a springboard to a higher human life is absolute reality. Because if I don't believe that, then the only reason that I'm engaging in that which I'm engaging in is because of the very egoism and the very selfishness that I need to be saved from. That's why something such as a self-chosen cult or whatnot can never be a genuine faith. Right? I want superiority. I want security, and I go and find something that appeases me in this way. It can never lead me to that higher life. I have to believe wholeheartedly that what I have is the truth. Right? Now, whether or not somebody else believes it, whether or not it will be believed in some time, may be irrelevant. As long as a sincere and honest person, I do my due diligence. I do not fool myself. I do not deceive myself, and I settle on that which I wholeheartedly believe to be the pathway upward to reality. As it concerns faith, certainly that will be a big discussion. I think one way, practical way to think about it could be that at first, in our mundane, in our profane, to make it rhyme, life, right, that is consistent out of simply the animal, the idea that we can have an experience of life such that is anything other than that, it can be preposterous. Right? I'm so weakened in my natural condition. I'm so besieged by my errors and by my illusions and by my delusions and by the claims of my selfishness. My mind is so scrambled. My emotions are so out of control at all times. I feel good. I feel bad. I feel elated. And this is a normal person, not anybody never mind anybody going through mental health crisis. Just a normal person. One second I'm up, next second I'm down, right? Somebody insulted me, I feel bad. Somebody gave me a compliment, I feel good. My tummy hurts. I'm sleepy. It's just the regular creaturely life. So the idea that I could attain to an experience of reality or of myself, however we would frame it, that is anything other than that, it can again be inconceivable. And that's where that faith comes in. If I pursue what I sincerely believe to be the truth, and I nullify myself again and again, and I die to self, and I sacrifice myself and my selfishness and my egoism, which can include first and foremost an image that I'm not selfish and that I have no egoism. I sacrifice all that nonsense, right? That I can attain to, again, life and being that is commensurately greater than that which I have now. Do I know that? Oh, how do I know that? Perhaps not. Perhaps I live a self-sacrificial life, right? A dying life where I die to self continually, where I give myself away without asking what's in return, what's my profit, what's in it for me, what pleasure will I get, what honor will I get. Perhaps I do that, and at the end of the road, there's nothing, right? At the end of the road, I'm still the same debased creature that I was at the beginning. And I just wasted all these opportunities for, massaging my egoism. So the faith that perhaps that's not so, and that there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, just to so frame it, that requires that faith. It requires the leap. And I don't think that has to do with accepting and or claiming that some or another statement is so. I don't think it has to do with claiming that I have to have faith that none of that. It has to do with a very practical and psychological reality, which is that I have to believe that something good can be made of me, something I can be good for something. Just like in a relationship, I have to believe that love is possible in this relationship. Perhaps right now there's not much love, but it's possible. I have to believe that child that I have, the baby that I have, can grow up, right, with the right tending into a good person, into a good man or woman. I have to believe that, and it's a possibility. I don't believe that. I don't have faith. It's not going to happen, or at least not because of me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's so
that's
much more to say on that account, but that's a point.
that's a really, yeah, that's a subject. That's a common usage of faith. I mean, definitely faith. Is definitely related to being selfless, for sure, as you allude to. Um, but really, faith in the sense that not merely just like a belief in, but faith with a content, the belief in, right? Not so much just a belief in me or a belief in like a confidence type of thing. That for sure, but more than that, in a sense, with belief having some type of dogmatic content, that again is not perceivable by the senses. not able to be scientifically proved. That's essential to religion, because if not, then it wouldn't be religion, right? So if we knew, like some people say, "Oh, I don't understand it. It can't exist," or "How can that be? I don't understand it." The mystery is essential to religion, and that, in the broad terms, has to be um, obtained or known, quote unquote, known through the knowledge of faith. If Thomas Aquinas distinguishes knowledge and faith, or through belief, where you believe without seeing. I mean, that's essential to religion, because I mean, it cannot be something that is, uh, you know, merely, here terrenal, according to this earth, but something that surpasses it. And yeah, very good. I think discussion has been excellent. I think we should do a part two, because there's a lot
Yeah.
here. Like the experience of religion is, we do a whole phenomenology on that.
Yeah,
And
if I
yeah,
just add one thing, and then
yeah, yeah,
we
sure,
can
sure,
wrap
please.
up. But just
I
before I
always
forget,
give you say the last word, but then sorry,
slips
this
out of
is the
mind.
last
No,
word for sure.
no, yeah, you can have, yeah, whatever. But just before it slips out of mind, I would say that it has to be conceded that if in my reality, whoever it is that I am, certain the only way that I can get to a faith in certain claims is by extending that egoism. I need security, I need safety, and this works for me. I need superiority, and this works for me. That's not going to work. Right? That's not going to work, and that's a problem that we face in the present, uh, right? In modern times, as they're called. If, let's say that, I was milked on a diet of vulgar materialism. I was taught that the real reality is, whatever words are in the present physics textbook, the atoms, the this and the that, the universe. There's nothing else in my life. For me to simply go and affirm out of an innumerable amount of claims, oh, this claim is correct. That's probably out of that very selfishness, that very self-seeking.
Mm,
Right? For example, just to drive the point home, let's say that again, I want to massage my egoism. I joined the cult. Now I'm superior. I know what you don't know. I'm better than everybody. This can never lead me out of myself, and it can never lead to that higher life of faith and love and truth and goodness. It's not going to work. Even if the cult is a cult of love, is a cult of faith, is a cult of peace, it's not going to work. And yet, my children, if they're born in that cult and they're raised they're taught this is the truth, it can work for them, right?
right, right.
Because to some extent, we're not saying subjective this, that. To some extent, it is here. The function is predicated on my belief, right? So a person, I think, in the broadest sense, faith can be taken something, as was mentioned. And normally, I have no faith that something can be made of me as a self. I
Mhm.
don't spiral out of control, perhaps, into a drug addiction, into an alcohol addiction, into viewing things. Right? I'm simply gonna make an idol out of profit, out of fame, out of my job, out of success. And what about me? I don't worry about me in this sense. I try to hide. I try to run for myself. So perhaps I can have some faith that something can be made out of me. And if I'm young, that's exactly the kind of faith I need. And then over the course of my life, I can trend in that direction of the good, of the true, of the beautiful, and really make something of myself. And if I'm in the closing stages, in the sunset of life, and I have not attained the human good, then what I need, perhaps here, as it concerns faith, would be a faith that if I can take a completely honest look at myself and I can concede that I have failed as a human being, that I remain selfish and self-centered and petty, right? I can get past my vanities and self-images. I'm a nice person. I did this and that, and I can really, really see my wretchedness for what it is and my pending demise. That I perhaps should have faith that there is still hope, right, and that I can still get help.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
depending on that place in life that we are.
yeah, that's I love doing videos with you, because we don't exactly agree on everything, and that's what makes it interesting. Um, because just a little bit pushback, because I think there's a danger to equate religion with morality, and I think that's a common thing to say. Religion is just basically, me being good. There has to that doctrinal content. Like I think someone's in a better position that believes they believe their beliefs to be true, as opposed to someone who just says, "These are my individual beliefs," and everyone has their own type of beliefs, and I respect those beliefs, kind of like an all-inclusive type of thing. Everyone has their beliefs. I think that that can breed relativism, and I think that is more tyrannical in the end. I think the person who believes, who's more dogmatic in religion, is not going to be dogmatic in other things. Like, I think dogma pertains to religion, not like in science, for example. So the person who believes like Islam is the true, I think, is in a better state than the person who's kind of like, this is just my interior beliefs. You have your beliefs. Everyone has kind of their own beliefs. This faith that is just, I believe in me. I believe in doing good. You do good. I do good. I think that's a problem because it breeds relativism in the end, and it closes itself off to some type of objective revelation.
So
Because at least the person who believes in objective revelation would be open to, like, let's say they're wrong, and there would be at least a mindset would kind of be allowed to another type of, I don't know, I might have actually interpreted you or heard
no,
you.
no, I think what you're saying, I agree. That is what I was saying. That you do
Okay.
have to believe that your belief is true. You can't say that's
Okay. Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right. You can't say in order for to have genuine faith in that regard, you can't say, yeah, out of all the things that I could believe, yeah, I pick this one. It works for me. It's fun. You believe what you believe.
Right.
I believe what you believe. It's not going to work. I have to believe, but the problem is that I can't force myself in this instance to believe when I don't believe. I
Right.
can't have faith when I don't have faith, and that's a predicament that many people are in, and that has to be faced.
Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
Because if I force myself in this way to believe, I close my eyes to what I don't want to see. It's going to be out of my egoism. It's out of my egoism. It's out of my selfishness. It's not going to take me out of my
Yeah.
selfishness.
Yeah. Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
I
sense.
was saying more so the faith, not that, oh, I have to be a good person, morality. It's the faith that I can be changed. It's the faith that I can step away from my idols, step away from my fantasies of who or what I am or am not, step away from my distractions, and that some good will come of me as a self.
Right.
I think it's different than just saying, I just have to be a good person or be nice
Right. Right.
or
Right.
something like this.
Right. Yeah. No, that's yeah. All right, yeah, it's really good. The whole notion of faith is really fascinating, and it is, even a logical position because as we live by human faith, So if human faith is legit source of knowledge, and supernatural faith is also, I mean, if God exists, which He does, then what He reveals, we ought to believe in as, just as what my parents tell me, since I trust them, I believe it on based on human faith. So faith is a rational position to have. Most of our knowledge is based on faith, human faith, right? So all right. Anything else you want to touch upon, or I think we're good. But we'll definitely continue this. I think it's a really interesting topic. We could talk a lot about. I think we could talk about essential elements like exterior practices, intellectual elements, ethical elements, religion and morality. How you can establish morality without religion and science, which we kind of talked about before. Religion and art, religion and technology. We can talk about tons of relating these. Religion is such a rich topic. But anyway, all right, well, we'll leave it here.
Yeah.
God bless you all. And yeah, thanks for coming on, Jeremy. And we'll be on again next time. All right, take care. God bless.